Friends, welcome to my workplace at Ranaghat, West Bengal, India. This is a cataract with grade 3 nuclear sclerosis. By this time, capsulorhexis, hydrodissection have been done, and now the tip of the phaco needle is introduced into the anterior chamber. Some superficial cortical lens matter is removed. Now a small trench is made in front of the main incision, and the tip is buried into the substance of the nucleus, and the nucleus is chopped into two halves. The nuclear mass is rotated and it is chopped at another place. The other heminucleus is also chopped into two fragments. But two fragments are not free, they are joined to each other. This fragment and the fragment at on o'clock is free. So I'm removing the free nuclear fragments first, and then I will manage the two fragments which are joined to each other. These two fragments are removed, emulsified and removed, and these two fragments, the mass, this heminucleus is tilted, go to the area where they are joined to each other. Then I chop this fragment into two smaller pieces and emulsify. Emulsifying the nucleus and keeping the epinucleus to protect the posterior capsule. Here I am removing this nucleus. The other nucleus is protecting the posterior capsule. Now I am in high vacuum and I didn't decrease the vacuum in this case. The vacuum is 450 millimeter of mercury, and here it is. I caught the PC and a small rent has occurred. There is no vitreous prolapse in the anterior chamber, very small rent. So I came out and then injected visco. And what to do now? Small rent, and I don't want to do vitrectomy. What I am doing is I am aspirating the cortical matter without irrigation. This is called dry aspiration by us, by our colleagues. Here the antechamber is frequently filled up with visco, and without using irrigation the cortical matter is removed. One can use a 23 gauge cannula. Since I am more comfortable with Simcoe, I am using a Simcoe cannula without irrigation. Here this small nuclear piece is squirted out. And now I remove the cortex from 12 o'clock and on o'clock. This cortex is flushed out. You must keep some BSS or ringer lactate in the syringe so that we can flush out this visco. So cortical aspiration is being done and frequently the antechamber is being filled up, and now I can see the rent very clearly. Yes, cortical aspiration is all complete. So whenever there is no vitreous prolapse, we can do this technique. And now I can see the rent very clearly and a tag. So I can hold this tag and convert this rent into a posterior rhexis, posterior CCC, posterior continuous curvilinear capsular rhexis. This posterior rhexis should be as small as possible. I'm not sure whether I have completed it or not. Now as I inject visco at this moment, I can see that the posterior rhexis is not complete. I have to use the forceps one more time and complete the rhexis. Here, after several attempts, I could hold the capsular tag, posterior capsular tag, and complete the posterior rhexis. And now I'll be able to place a lens in the back. In this case, we selected Technis monofocal single piece intraocular lens, and I'm going to use the same lens in the back. There is some amount of cortex at 4:30 o'clock. I'm going to remove this now. After several attempts, I could remove the cortex. Only a small speck was there. And now some more visco is injected, and then the Technis monofocal intraocular lens is being implanted in the back. The patient is under topical anesthesia and constantly moving his eye. The trailing haptic has gone into the bag, and the leading haptic is in the antechamber, and here by a push it goes into the capsular bag. And now I want to check if the IOL is in the bag or not. I'm trying to hook the rhexis margin with this Sensky hook, and I can find that I can hook the rhexis margin, so the lens is in the bag. And now I use the Simcoe to remove the visco from the anterior chamber. I'm not irrigating any fluid, just irrigating and aspirating. Whenever there is a rent, we should not only irrigate. We should irrigate and aspirate at the same time so that the fluid doesn't go behind the eye well and doesn't hydrate the vitreous. Yes, most of the visco is removed by this time from the anterior chamber. Now, though I need not go behind the lens, but there are a lot of visco behind, so I went behind and removed some visco from the bag, from the posterior aspect of the bag. And now I am using a cutter to remove the visco from the anterior vitreous or from the Burgers space. It is done. And now there's an air bubble. At this time I am using the cutter itself to remove any visco that may be there in the anterior chamber. And now, after injecting an air bubble, I hydrated the corneal stroma on either side of the stab incisions, and this is the final lavage of the anterior chamber. So we could manage the case very well using my experience of 20 years. Thank you very much for your attention. Hope this video will help you in developing your surgical skills.